sensational new twist in the saga of El Chapo, the infamous Mexican drug lord who escaped from a high-security prison and was caught just days ago. But look at this. We've now learned that before the Mexican authorities tracked El Chapo down, the actor Sean Penn found him first. ABC's Matt Gutman has the story from Los Mochis, Mexico this morning. That's where El Chapo was rearrested. Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. Apparently, Chapo Guzman so badly wanted a biopic made of his life that he invited Hollywood actors Sean Penn and Kate Del Castillo to his mountain hideout. Now, the result was Hollywood, but no biopic for Guzman and a pair of investigations by the Mexican Attorney General's office into those actors.
This morning, that stunning new video. The first ever interview with El Chapo Guzman surfacing just a day after his capture in his home state of Sinaloa. The drug kingpin in an interview conducted for actors Sean Penn and Kate Del Castillo, who he hoped would make a biopic about his life. Filmed on a remote ranch with squawking chickens, the man credited with thousands of deaths and shipping a quarter of the narcotics into the U.S., saying, "All I do is defend myself."
Para la señorita Kate del Castillo y el señor Sean Penn.
In an accompanying Rolling Stone article with that proof of interview picture, Penn describes the harrowing trip to the jungle to meet El Chapo, his charm, his son's glittery watches, and the battalion of polished bodyguards around him. On Friday, Mexican authorities said El Chapo's communications with producers and actors helped lead them to the drug lord. Mexican authorities dragging Guzman in front of the cameras, now saying they may send him off again, extraditing him to the U.S. to face drug and murder charges. He's broken out of 2 maximum security prisons in his career, most recently last year, escaping through this tunnel built right into his prison cell. This morning, we learned how close he got to escaping again, squirting out of a gun battle at this house where 5 of his men were killed into the sewers. Police told us he surfaced at this intersection, and pulling up this manhole, we knew we found where he'd been.
The 2 of them allegedly dropped out of this manhole. You can peel it back, and if you look inside, you can see that M4 with the rocket launcher. Now, they left that inside, scampered out here, carjacked a vehicle, and drove towards the highway.
The Mexican authorities finally catching El Chapo and his lieutenant on this gravel road.
They came here because it was the closest protected area to where El Chapo was arrested, about 200 yards that way. This suite is one of the furthest in the back, and they brought him inside. This is where they got his identity. They sat him down on this bed. That's where they took that famous picture.
Hours after that picture was taken, he was whisked back to that Mexican Supermax prison.
Now, El Chapo could spend months in that prison as his extradition process plays out. But you could say that the Mexican authorities should be grateful to Sean Penn. After all those clandestine messages in that 7-hour tequila-fueled interview did lead them to the shootout at this house and eventually El Chapo's capture. Dan?
Stranger than fiction. Matt Gutman, thank you. For more on this, let's go to Washington and ABC's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, I got to ask you, given the vast resources of the U.S. federal government, how did an actor find El Chapo before the DEA and the Mexican army?
Well, Dan, I got one word for you: ego. Apparently, El Chapo wanted to be interviewed. He wanted his life story told, and that played a key role in Sean Penn being able to get this interview. So the primary person responsible here for this interview is El Chapo. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, exactly right. So let me ask you about Sean Penn, though. Could he be in any legal trouble for not alerting authorities to the whereabouts of El Chapo?
Dan, so far DOJ is not commenting, but DOJ might consider, the Justice Department might consider Sean Penn more of a working journalist in this case, and therefore would not see him as the major issue. I think the key question here is El Chapo's actions may have led to his own capture, in the sense that he gives an interview in which he acknowledges being a violent drug offender, a violent drug cartel leader. Pretty stunning, and I can guarantee you the Department of Justice will be seeking to get that into evidence if he's ever extradited.
Right, so Sean Penn's interview could become useful evidence in the legal case against El Chapo. And speaking of that, the Americans have long wanted to extradite him to face justice in our court system, and it now looks like the Mexicans are finally going to agree. Is that, in essence, a way of admitting on their side that they just can't keep this guy behind bars?
Well, you know, it's unclear, but they may have decided that keeping him in jail is difficult. He's been a source of embarrassment. They got him back, and it might be a little bit easier to put him in the U.S. government's hands and let them deal with it.
All right, Pierre Thomas from Washington this morning.